Hello and a warm welcome to Federal special program Capital Beat. Attacks on the minorities, especially the Muslim community, is on the rise. And if you look at the poll bound states, especially, I want to quote two incidents which have happened in the past 3 to 4 days. Talk about Maharashtra, where yesterday this news report was all over, where a 72-year-old man was beaten up, he was slapped, he was abused, just on the suspicion that he was carrying the cow meat, as in the beef. But in reality, he did spoke to the media platforms and he said that he was carrying the buffalo meat for his daughter who stayed at Kalyan. So he was traveling and he was in a train while this incident happened. Then there is another incident of Haryana where a 22-year-old migrant worker, he was from West Bengal, and he was beaten to death by a cow vigilante group just on the suspicion that he had consumed cow meat, that is the beef. Now, similarly, not only these physical attacks are on the rise, and there is a report also by the Association for Protection for Civil Rights Groups, that is the ACPCR, has put out a report saying that these attacks on the Muslim communities have increased, especially after the 2024 election results. Now, not only the physical attacks, but also the demolitions, the brazen demolitions are happening. You just saw what happened in Madhya Pradesh's Chhatarpur, where the entire bungalow was razed to the ground. Then today, Supreme Court has come down heavily on this bulldozer justice, and they have said that the houses cannot be demolished even if the person is an accused. And now Supreme Court will lay down guidelines for this bulldozer action. In fact, Supreme Court said that it will not protect the unauthorized constructions, but it really gave an example where it said that a father may have a recalcitrant son, but that doesn't mean you go ahead and demolish the person's house. So the big question we are asking is that why is why are the attacks on the Muslim communities on the rise? If it is in Maharashtra, if it is in Haryana, has it got to do with the elections? Are they trying to polarize the voters, consolidate the Hindu votes? And secondly, is there any other message which the government is trying to give to the people of the country? We'll try and discuss all of this. Joining me now is Javed Ansari, senior journalist and political commentator. So thank you so much for joining. We have Raza Haider, who's a social activist. So thank you so much for joining. And we have Pushpraj Deshpande, who's the author of the book called Bharat Jodo Yatra. He works closely with the India Alliance. And I'm also told that I'll be joined by RJD spokesperson Jayan Jigyasu just in a bit. So I'll begin today's conversation with Raza Haider. Raza, these two incidents which I quoted of the 72-year-old man who was beaten and slapped while he was traveling in a train, and the second is that of the 22-year-old Sabir Mallik, who was beaten to death by the cow vigilante group. Now, these attacks are happening in a pattern, and I've just given you these two examples. There's been one case in Bijnor as well. Then there has been a case where a gang rape happened in Ujjain, and there were several accused. They were accused from several communities, but the house of Muslim accused was razed to the ground. It was demolished. So why is this activity on the rise? To see a special pattern, because there's several incidents which have happened over July and August.
Thank you. The point that you have already made in your opening statement, and that goes slightly wider when I say that if we need to open up our platform for the debate, you see that we have done othering, we have seen the instances of hate speech, we have seen the instances of, hate mongers coming onto the street, and then vigilante justice. All this combined, we have a state where we are actually, if I can use this term, a bit somewhere between a banana republic and a police state. So what do? There is a certain section of people who get emboldened because there is no action, no prosecution, nothing happens, nothing moves, no court is taking cognizance on its own unless some activist goes to the court. Now, second thing is that police or the administration itself has become very proactive to actually do the job for the executive. And that doesn't mean the legal, legit jobs that I'm saying, that things where what you have just mentioned, the bulldozer, demolition. I won't call it bulldozer justice. I'm not going to dignify that term by calling it justice. There is no justice in that. even though you are an accused, or even though your place is built on a land which is a government land, you cannot demolish without the due process. So that is well stated. Here, I would say that today's Supreme Court direction somewhat stopped short of that, because probably they thought that people will exploit this lacuna there, and hence they stopped short of that, underlining that. But in the past, they have done it. During there was a GO by Atal Bihari Vajpayee government on two occasions. One was on the lands of DDA land, the JJ colonies on in DDA on the DDA lands, and one was for tricycle rickshaw owners in Delhi. In both the cases, Supreme Court had actually laid down very good principles. So I am very hopeful that this would happen in a second phase. They would come out with the guidelines or some kind of a direction. So this is one part. Now coming back to your main original part, that why this is happening. This has been happening ever since. I presume for everybody knows the starting point. We do not have to go back there. The point is that why the repetition is in a particular format where the identity of the person is established first, and then there is a pretext to it. So you can create any kind of pretext and then bully him, and then if the bullying is not up to your mark, then you can probably kill that person. So now, why there is not an uproar in the normal middle class urban centric centers on these brazen killings, whereas any other killing would get a very different kind of a response? My total understanding of my 40 years is that unless until you try to underline processes where that person is not considered as somebody else, it's part of the mainstream citizenry, you will not get that kind of a support. So anyway, that part, that where you want to alienate a certain section of the society, has already taken place. There is a hate speech against a certain section of the society, we know it. And then there is a support by the political masters that this can go on, we can look other way,
If I may,
and there won't be any prosecution.
Raza, if I may ask you a quick question, and then I'll go to Javed. That what is the kind of difference which you see in what we have seen in the last 10 years and now what we are seeing post 4th June? Because there is a pattern to what is happening. Brazen demolitions, brazen attacks, but you've had several other incidents in the last 10 years as well. So do you find any difference in what we are seeing now and what we've seen in the last 10 years?
There is a slight difference, you can say that, but I would consider it that there's a continuum. And the continuum is based on the same premise that what the people or the vigilantes got emboldened with, they would continue that process. And within that, the worst part is that the recognition within the society is very low. This thing can get a very different kind of a response in any society of the world, but it will not get the right requisite response in our society due to the fact that it has been already established that these things can happen, and this is just a law and order situation. And some years ago, I was talking to a very high-ranking, almost second-ranking police official of a state, where something similar had taken place, and that person told me categorically that till the time we at a very lower rung, we know that discrimination happens even in terms of reporting as well to the officials, and those officials, those people who are actually law enforcement agencies and law enforcement person on the field, they themselves are very prejudiced now, and they are emboldened. So the lot of things are not even getting to us. So somebody shoots the particular incident, somebody makes it viral, then we get to know it. Now, and one more thing which is very, very critical, that most of the newspapers and people writing about it, we should start discriminating that beef is a different thing than a wheel. A buffalo, because now that we have to live with the reality, even though it's not as if like completely banned, people can have anything under our constitution, but many of the states have now put in a thing. So even though beef is, banned, there ought to be a difference between what we call. We do not use a proper term when we define that kind of meat. That it is not buffalo meat, it is not beef, it is veal. Somebody can actually carry it. It's allowed. So that, even that, while reporting, if we do it, probably it will get reinforced. So this is my small interjection here.
No, no, you're absolutely right. And in fact, the 72-year-old man who was beaten up in the train, he was carrying the buff meat, and then the youths who apprehended him, they said that he was carrying a beef. But Javed, if I may come to you now, there is this whole system, which does the work of informing the police. It does the work of, they're so active as a vigilante group. They just go and inform the police. They will inform the civil society, which are connected to the right wingers. What would you say to this entire system which has been created around this cow vigilante group? There clearly seems to be a political agenda behind it. But what is the BJP government, or if I may say, what is the center trying to achieve? By perpetuating an agenda like this, coming as it does, you have a Haryana election, you have a Maharashtra election. Elections are due in several other states.
Neeru, why does it surprise you? Why do these incidents surprise you anymore? This has become almost as a matter of state policy in some state governments. And is it merely a coincidence that this mostly happens in states that are poll bound, or that these happens in states which are not ruled by the India Alliance? This is something to ponder. And is this the first time? Okay, this gentleman, purely for argument's sake, I know, and the whole world knows, he was absolutely innocent. He was just targeted. He was alone. And these lumpens, these thugs, they targeted him. And most of these incidents happen because they know that no matter what they enjoy impunity, that they will get away and no action will be taken. Assuming for argument's sake that this man was indeed carrying something, which people found objectionable. What about that family which was traveling in a train and was gunned down by a police constable? What was they carrying? They weren't carrying anything. Those people, their only mistake was that they had a beard, they were wearing kurta pajamas and a skull cap, so they did. What about the hundreds of people what about that Ansari boy in Jharkhand who was tied to a tree and beaten up and his skull cracked up? What meat was he carrying? He had gone to settle a land dispute with an old family friend, and he was surrounded and lynched. I mean, you can write a whole book on the number of cases that has happened, and look at the kind of reaction there is. Instead of action being taken, these guys, even when they are caught for formality's sake and then released on the 4th or the 5th day, they are garlanded by political bigwigs.
Absolutely.
What has happened to all those to this gentleman from Manesar? I'm sorry, I take back that word. He's not a gentleman. It would be a shame to actually call him a human being anyway. But that boy from Manesar, Monty, but I don't know. I'm forgetting his name.
Monu Manesar. You're
Has
talking
anything
about
happened? Monu Manesar. Has anything happened to him? He's been taken into protective custody and all that. All these, do you think the government is that dumb or innocent that they don't know what these vigilante groups are all about? And yet no action is taken. Why do you have to wait and who are the people who comprise these vigilante groups? These Gaurakshak Mandal and Gauds. Nobody, no less than the great leader, Mr. Narendra Modi ji. He had once, in a fit of anger, or God knows, his conscience had awakened, he had said that these are all lumpens masquerading as Gaurakshaks. Who are these people? Has their antecedents been checked? Are they ever checked? Just because you spot a saffron bandana tomorrow I'll wear a green bandana and start, writing on the street. Even if I go outside and stand on the street, you know what will happen to me. You see what happens these days. But is any and the Supreme Court? I am not satisfied by they've come down very hard. This is all meaningless. Oral observations have no meaning. I've seen this many times before also. They come down hard, but when it comes to taking, laying down the law, putting it in black and white, putting it as a part of the judgment, then something else comes out. So I do hope that I'm wrong and that this is not an aberration, that this will now become the norm, and that the Supreme Court will lay down not only strict guidelines but also take punitive action against authorities which are. Look at this bulldozer justice in Uttar Pradesh. Mr. Reza was right. Why call it justice? Just do a rain check. Just do a check. And who are the people who are the receiving end? Is it really all about illegal encroachments? Then in that case, all of Sainik Farm should be razed to the ground because it is all illegal. But does anybody have the dum? Try doing it. All the millionaires and multimillionaires and the bigwigs and the rich and the famous from the city live there. वहाँ किसी के दम है? You can't even remove a stone from there, leave alone bring down those houses.
Right.
So what are we talking about? Let's not be under any illusion. This is become a part of state policy to target a particular community, the Muslims.
That's an important point. You're saying that these attacks are becoming a part of the state policy. Now, Pushpraj, I'll come to you. Jayant Jigyasu from RJD, he's joined. He's a RJD spokesperson. Thank you so much, Jayant. I'll come to you. But first, I want to come to Pushpraj. What Javed was just mentioning, and I would want to juxtapose this in reference to this 22-year-old Sabir Mallik who was beaten to death in Haryana. Now, Nayab Singh Saini was posed a question by a reporter. Then he says, गौ रक्षकों के बारे में तो हम ज्यादा कुछ नहीं कह सकते, उनको कौन रोक सकता है? Nobody can stop these cow vigilante groups if they are behaving in this manner, and we have a proper law which takes care, if this kind of an incident happens. Now, a chief minister of the state making a statement like this, what do you think is the real agenda of BJP? What is BJP's message now post 2024 elections? If there are continuing attacks like these, continuing bulldozer events of bulldozer justice, what do you think BJP is trying to convey to its allies, to the countrymen?
Hi Neeluji, thank you for having me on your show, and a very good afternoon to our panelists. Let us first focus on Mr. Rane and then move on to the other situation. In trying to communalize Maharashtra's political situation, the Kankabni MLA is clearly violating his oath of allegiance to uphold India's constitution and protect the nation's integrity, right? Now, if Pradhan Mantri Modi genuinely believes in Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and if the BJP is committed to India's constitutional values, as it says in its own constitution in Article 2, then it must immediately take action against Mr. Rane and suspend him, since he has violated their own party discipline as per Article 25 of their party constitution. Now, if the BJP doesn't suspend Mr. Rane, then it's obvious that the BJP tacitly endorses his stance, which is quite believable, as Javed was saying and our previous panelists before that were saying, given the BJP's top leadership has methodically normalized the vilification and othering of minorities, and Muslims in particular. I don't need to belabor, because we all know this, how the Prime Minister, the Home Minister, the UP and Assam Chief Ministers and multiple legislators have covertly and overtly dog whistles against Muslims and minorities. It is no coincidence that hate speech and promoting enmity between communities has jumped by almost 45% between 2021 and 22. Likewise, in Maharashtra, there have been methodical riots in Western Maharashtra, in Satara, in Sangli, in Kolhapur. It is no coincidence that in almost every instance, as Javed was saying, this always happens in a poll-bound states. Similarly, since Maharashtra is poll-bound, in every instance in Western Maharashtra, it's a far-right group linked to BJP leaders. Now, we know why this is happening. For one, the BJP hopes to communalize and polarize the ground. But I personally feel, and I think the majority of people in Maharashtra feel, that this won't work because Maharashtra's socio-cultural ethos is grounded in reformist movements led by Phule, Shahu Maharaj, Baba Saheb Ambedkar and Warkari traditions. All of them are deeply secular and fraternal. But these communal incidents are also happening because Mr. Rane in particular wants to deflect attention from the collapse of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's statue in his own father's constituency, which we all know are going to adversely impact their particular electoral fortunes. But the Marathi Manus ain't buying it. They're not going to buy whatever the BJP is spinning. Now, even though efforts are being, and this is my last point, even though efforts are being made to caricature this as a Hindu versus Muslim issue, this is what Mr. Rane, the MLA, said, that हम MLA होने के पहले हम लोग तो हिंदू है, and that's why we are taking action against this. This is actually an Indian patriot versus a Deshdrohi, a traitor issue. Most people, most Indians believe that we are Indians firstly and lastly, as Ambedkar famously put it. And Mr. Rane and BJP's efforts to communalize India are both constitutionally and civilizationally antithetical to us. Now, what they are doing is, in a sense, ahistorical. And everywhere the BJP is trying to do this. They try to do this in Ayodhya, they try to do this in Gorakhpur, they try to do this in Faizabad, they try to do this in Shirdi, they try to do this in Western Maharashtra. And they've done this in Kerala, and they've done this in Karnataka. Every single place that they have tried to do this, it has backfired on them. And I would ask your viewers to look at the track record of all the major religious sites in India. Look how they voted in Lok Sabha election. They've all voted out the BJP because that is where the BJP tried this factory of hate politics. It's not going to work anymore. So they need to very quickly change to something else. Back to you, Niluji.
But the most surprising thing, Jayant, and now I'll come to you, is that BJP's communal card didn't work in 2024. It's there for all the people to see that. It didn't work in Ayodhya. All the statements coming from the Prime Minister didn't work the way they had wished. Now, why are they again hell-bent on playing that communal card? Haven't they learned their lessons? Or their kitty is devoid of any other agenda except for this communal card, which they will try and play to the hilt, to the maximum? Is that what BJP is now trying to do?
See, this is the only thing they have been trained by their uh, mentors, and the RSS has been spreading this communal hatred since its inception. And since last 10 years, the mental health of the children in the family of minority group, especially in Muslim families, they got badly affected. When us people watch television and such news come before our eyes, we get disturbed. Then think of those families, those children, those women. Communalism goes clean to the marrow of these wounds, and their protectors and these people cease to be human beings. They are cowards and devils. We should not hesitate to call them. And the chief minister is a blot on humanity and total disgrace to parliamentary politics. The way he has responded to these incidents is not unexpected. Uh, we have been witnessing a serious threat to peaceful coexistence in the society. Uh, and the sad aspect of all these things is these people not only get protection, but also they are promoted by the BJP and RSS leaders. And this is, I can say, this is uh, in a way their criteria to get promotion in their organizations. Uh, One should honestly not only criticize but also socially boycott these people. And if we uh, uh, if we look at the way in the Uttar Pradesh the chief minister is treating the citizens of the state, uh, bulldozer is totally antithetical to democracy. How can one impose such practices? But this is happening, and people are protesting. Uh, be it the grandeur, Iqbal once said, uh, जलाले बादशाही हो या जमहूरी तमाशा हो, जुदा हो दी सियासत से तो रह जाती है चंगेजी. Be it the grandeur of monarchy or be the drama of democracy. If there is no honesty, there remains robbery. And what we were witnessing in this country is total robbery, and we must stop it. That is what I want to say.
All right, now I'll come for the final round of questions. Answers. Raza, I'll come to you now. That it was the Hindutwadi gangs who were very, very active. Now, do you feel that has it been replaced by the state machinery where the police, where the administration now are almost hand in gloves? They've got a clear direction from the top levels that just go after them. That's where what Javed was saying was becoming a part of state policy. Do you see that coming out in full play? That now it's the police and the administration who are behind the minorities.
So let me start because this thing did not get established because I am a Muslim name bearing person. So the caveat should be there that most often when we work in the civil society space, we have not just witnessed this. I've taken testimonies of different people, tribals, Dalits, other marginalized communities, women. So, just because I bear a Muslim name and this happened to be an incident which you have taken reference note to, had a person with a Muslim name, it should not be connected. But nevertheless, let me be very universally stating certain things, and then I'll come to the specific thing to you. The point that these lumpens, we should call them, us people, them people, these people is not required. We are very clear that these are the lumpens element, these are the fringe which has gotten emboldened because of the protection that they have got and they have received in last so many years through the executive and the administration both. So both are gullible, both are responsible, these two institutions, including, I would say that here and there, judiciary just does some touching up. Hence, I mentioned the judiciary in the first incidents when you had come to me, because they do just touching, touches they give and passing touches they give, and then they, unless until there's a huge hue and cry and the case comes in front of them with proper investigation and a proper evidence. So let's leave that part. These two elements, these two pillars, whom we actually believe to be very strong and ought to be very strong in a democracy, incidentally, for the last 10 years, there is a certain erosion in all the powers they used to wield as an independent agencies. Number one. Number two, whatever is the quality is, or the main principal parties' policies, they get percolated down to not only the elements which are taking charge and they're doing this vigilante kind of thing, but to the executive officers, police officers, important people who are there to actually safeguard the constitution, not safeguard these lumpen elements. So now there is a clear demarcation and a weight has shifted. Now that weight has shifted, there ought to be some more action onto the side of civil society, number one, and then other political groups. They are not too vocal. I must say that they ought to be very vocal. They have to come on the street just like any other incident. And at the same time, civil society groups should actually file a complaint, go to the authorities, do all the things which is required. I know it's very, very cumbersome, very tiresome, but nevertheless, doing it every time is very important because everything gets documented. As Javed Saab said, I am telling you that some of the students in 2 or 3 years' time, some law students will come together and they will do a proper documentation of what has happened in last 15 years. So we need each and every incident properly documented, number one. Number two, action taken, not taken, who was involved, who was not involved. All these things should also be part of it because we are very, very poor in terms of our immediate history. We are not even concerned about our, protecting our monuments, protecting our large, history. But immediate history is very, very important. No democracy can flourish if you are so, negligent about it. So we ought to be very, very careful here.
Right. No, but Raj, I'll come to you now. That we've seen some kind of a silence on the part of the India Alliance, on the part of the opposition, that they've not been very vocal. Why are opposition parties not able to put that kind of a pressure on the allies of the BJP? Say, for example, JDU, TDP. Now, these are parties which have been speaking on the welfare of Muslims. And now, if these kind of attacks are increasing, would you not blame the opposition as well for not speaking enough, as far as the attacks on Muslims are concerned?
I don't quite agree with your assessment on this particular score, Niluji, because Rahul Gandhi and Mallikarjun Kharge, the leaders of opposition in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, who work collectively for speak collectively for the India Alliance, have vocally spoken out against hate crimes and crimes against Muslims and minorities in general. In fact, Rahul Gandhi has tweeted about this today, and I know happen to know for a fact that the CLP leader in Maharashtra, Satesh Banti Patil, Vijay Wadettiwar, the CLP leader in the lower house, Balasaheb Thorat, and others have, Uddhav Thackeray, of course, Aditya Thackeray, have all spoken about this wherever it happens. Similarly, I know that Tejasvi Yadav had spoken about this in Bihar, as had Akhilesh Yadav when it happened in UP. So the fact of the matter is, we are raising it wherever it happens. Wherever the BJP tries to do it, we are proactively taking it up. The fact of the matter is that we need to understand that there is something larger beyond partisan politics that is happening. Please understand. I mean, I know this is a very perhaps surreal analogy I'm drawing, but like in Nazi Germany, post-Nazi Germany, the German people went through this denazification process. Of course, it was imposed on them, but because of what the BJP is doing now, what it has been doing in the last 10 years, the catchment area of progressive forces committed to liberal, secular, and democratic values has become so large that now what is happening is it is that ordinary people, citizen groups, civil society organizations, people's movements, they are proactively countering this at every instance. I'll give you one instance. In January earlier this year, the same MLA, Nitesh Rane and Geeta, I'm forgetting her second name, both BJP MLAs, raised similar hate crimes, the hate speeches, somewhere in Bombay, in Ghatkopar area and some other places. It is not that the police that took so much action. It was citizen groups that took them to court and got the High Court to intervene and get FIRs filed. Of course, it took 6 months for them to do that, but it is citizen groups that did that. Increasingly, even now, when there are riots happening in Maharashtra, Western Maharashtra, it is citizen groups who are pressurizing both the India parties and putting pressure on the BJP that why are you doing this? I'm telling you this is something, what we are seeing is a corrective, a civilizational corrective that has happened, that is happening as we go, as we are seeing. And it's not happening in just Karnataka, it's happening in Maharashtra, it's happening in Madhya Pradesh, it's happening in Uttar Pradesh. And this is going to severely impact the BJP because the process that they started with the Ram Janmabhoomi movement is now finally being demolished. It is systematically extinguishing now. And this is the people of India that are collectively rising to demolish what they started, their so-called communal politics. It is now on its last gasp. That is what is happening. So I don't think I agree with your assessment about the India parties. The India parties are proactive. That is getting drowned out because citizen groups are also equally, perhaps more vociferously active today. Back to you, Neil.
So apparently, more communication needs to be done at the behest of the India parties. Maybe that could be the strategy, but that I think you will have to think for it. But what I want to ask Javed now is that where will this brazen communal politics take BJP from here on? They've already tasted the results in 2024, what happened to them during the Lok Sabha elections. And now they are almost heading towards a decimation as far as Maharashtra is concerned. Haryana, we don't know what's going to unfold for them. But how far is it really going to take BJP?
No, don't worry about Haryana. Even more than Maharashtra, they'll get decimated totally in Haryana, despite all the monkey business that they are up to.
Okay.
So, there is no need to underplay it. Facts are speaking for themselves. It's evident. So no matter how many dates they change, no matter what they do, they will bite the dust in Haryana and in a big way. Where this will lead to, I don't know. It's only getting progressively worse. I'm telling you from personal experience, I know of many Muslims who are afraid to travel by trains. And the reason being is that when they travel, they're scared that in the reservation charts, their names will be there and they will be rounded up, that they will be harassed, they will be humiliated, they'll be, or maybe something worse than that will happen. I don't like to make it about myself, but I must tell you, every Friday I go for prayers. And some well-meaning friends of mine in this colony where I reside have, tried to caution me. He says, don't wear a skull cap and go. Aap wahan pehen liya kijiye. He says, because all kinds of lunatics
Hmm.
uh, keep roaming around. Somebody koi badtameezi karega. So things have reached this place. I mean, this stage. I'm not being immodest, but I'm not a nobody. I'm a journalist. I have connections. There is certain immunity that we journalists enjoy by virtue of being in the profession, by virtue of our contacts and all that. But even then, so you can imagine the kind of fear. I have never sensed this kind of fear, this kind of despair, this kind of alienation that I sense now. I've been a journalist for 40 years. I've covered riots. I've covered the Babri Ram Janambhoomi movement in the lead up to and then during the demolition and even after. I was amongst those few journalists, non-Hindu journalists, present in Ayodhya when the Babri Masjid was assaulted the first time. So things were bad then, but they are very, very bad now.
Right.
And this is not healthy for the Indian state. This is not, apart from the fact that it reflects very poorly on us, this is for the long-term benefit of our country. This is not good. And what can you expect when a chief minister says कि हाँ, I will take sides. Yes, I will take sides. मैं मियाँ को ये नहीं करने दूंगा, मैं मियाँ को वो नहीं करने दूंगा. What happens? I mean, what can you expect when the chief minister of India's most populous state and the one that sends the largest number of MPs to the Lok Sabha, on the floor of the house, he says कि हम तो जमीन में गाड़ देंगे, हम bulldozer भेजेंगे. Nothing happens.
Right.
After
Right.
10 years, the Supreme Court has woken up. What is the kind of justice that we are talking about? The Chief Justice of India is crying himself hoarse that bail should be the norm and jail should be a aberration. Yet Omar Khalid's bail petition has not been heard. His trial has not begun. His bail petition has not been heard since the last 3.5, 4 years. So what do you say to this?
Right.
A convicted rapist, Ram Rahim, gets parole every second month. He spent more time out of jail than in jail. Yet there is somebody in jail whose bail petition is also not being jailed. What do you say for this, where a comedian is jailed for a joke that he did not crack?
Right. So,
So when you ask me what is this going to lead to, I don't know. All I can say is that I have hope in the wisdom and sagacity of the people of India, but I have very little expectations from the Indian state.
strong words coming from you over there. But Jayant, towards the end, what Supreme Court today has said on the demolition bait and the bulldozer justice, they say that they're going to prescribe some guidelines. They'll come out with certain guidelines by which, the brazen use of bulldozers might be mitigated. Now, there's a big word called might be. Now, how hopeful are you? And do you think that this is really going to make some difference on the basis of what Supreme Court has just today said?
Yes, all the four pillars of democracy should work conscientiously, and we have expectations from all these pillars. Otherwise, the whole structure will collapse. In any case, human life is more valuable than any cattle on this earth. And but the whole state and those who are running it uh, fail to understand this very simple thing miserably. And this happens just because of lack of compassion and respect for human dignity. And this hatred against minority group, especially against Muslims, will be thrown in the Bay of Bengal very soon. And we are very hopeful that the citizen of this country will do it on the right time. Secularism has been a cherished value in our country, and we will continue to value this democratic practice. And this is the only template which can save the diversity of this country.
But
Faiz,
BJP's communal card, just a quick response from you before I wind up the show. Do you think that this communal card will succeed in states like J&K and Haryana, which are just going to polls in October?
see, to be secular is very difficult. To make our people secular is very Herculean task. The element of communalism is very dominant in the psyche of the people because they listen such insensitive jokes since their childhood. So, so that it is duty of our leaders and statesmen to talk about secular values and echo it more and more in their speeches. Faiz used to recite, and there is a very popular nazm of Faiz, and its title is Dua, perhaps. आइए हाथ उठाएं हम जिन्हें सोजे मोहब्बत के सिवा कोई बुत कोई खुदायार. So ये Gandhi also advocates for Sarv Dharm Sambhav, and before his death, just 9 months ago, he said, even if I am killed, I will not give up repeating the names of Ram and Rahim, which mean to me the same God. With these names on my lips, I will die cheerfully. Let's celebrate and value Sarvadharm somehow. Only this thing can protect and save our country and human civilization. Ji.
But the big question is, will we ever see this era coming back where Mahatma Gandhi spoke about Ram and Rahim together? I leave it to the viewers what they have to write and send as feedback to us. Thank you so much, Javed Ansari, Raza Haider, Pushparaj, Jen. Thank you so much, and want to appeal to the viewers who are watching this discussion. Subscribe to our channel, send us your feedback, and stay tuned. Take care.